Hey, good morning to you. Welcome to Snow Talk, everyone. Wave meteorologist Brian Good on this Monday of a holiday week. Oh, yeah, it's here real fast. Who was it that said that? Angie, yeah, talking about how I can't believe it's already the end of November. You're right. It's moving along real fast. And when it comes to the holiday shopping, it's like, ooh, should have started in May. Like my mom always told me I needed to do. I never do it. Okay, I hope you guys are doing well. You've had a good weekend. We are tracking, of course, some active weather coming the next few days. Nothing too extreme, all right? Even on the snow side, there's nothing too extreme that is showing up. But I think everyone's fully aware now that it's going to get colder, of course, and it'll come in waves as we evolve into December. Will it go all the way through Christmas? Well, that's a tough one to call this early. If the pattern holds in its history, typically a cold snap or a trend to colder weather can hold roughly about 2 weeks, sometimes 3, averages 2, and then it snaps back. So that means that if we were to go on that idea, the trend would be to warmer toward Christmas and New Year. So we'll see. But that's typically what happens in these scenarios. But these scenarios don't always like to follow the or color inside the lines, if you will, on this scenario. All right, so I'm going to walk you through it all and get you through the holiday week here, especially when it comes to any travel that you may have. And a lot of you do have quite a bit of travel coming your way. So let's get into, we'll start with the snowboard here this morning. And again, nothing too extreme. We're watching the one for Thanksgiving when it comes to the rain snow line. Where will that be? That's something we'll be playing into with the future cast coming up. And then a couple rounds of light clipper type snows, which if you're not familiar with those, they cause the biggest problems around here more than the bigger snows do. They're minor, but boy, it's all about timing with those. I'll explain coming up here in just a few minutes. All right, at the moment, it's rain that we're getting ready for, not snow. And that's just hours away from arriving. And still a chance to get some thunder out of this. Most of it will be just general showers, though. Clouds have been increasing throughout the morning, and that trend will keep building and building and building with rain scheduled to develop here in the next 3 to 4 hours, and then certainly into this evening's rush through about, I would say, midnight. The majority of the showers will be passing through wave country. At least it's warm out. Despite the clouds, the wind is doing all this. The sun's obviously not. So wind flow is strong to allow numbers to get back into the 60s again today. We do have at least a chance at maybe 1 or 2 little blips of lightning that may develop this afternoon. I'll show you where those could develop here in just a few moments. But again, nothing on the severe side or anything like that expected. Not exactly a spring type day at all, but compared to what's coming, yeah, no doubt. This is the warmest that I see in the foreseeable future is today. After today, nothing close to this. So soak up the warmth today. I don't know how you're going to do that on a cloudy day. But anyway, you can just take a bottle outside, shake it around, collect some of the air. I don't know if that actually works, but somebody's going to try it. All right, you see the cloud covering the area now. Radar again quiet. The little blips that we'll start to see will develop soon. It's a front that is pushing in and digging into the Ohio River Valley. But unlike most systems that feature a good southwest wind and temperatures in the 60s, we do not have a lot of thunderstorm activity. And why is that the case? Well, there's not a lot of moisture where it counts. There is moisture that is building in the air, no doubt, but in the different layers, like you have to look at the atmosphere as a cake, excuse me, and the different layers matter. And moisture in certain levels has a different outcome. And I don't want to get too much in the science of which layers matter right now, but just letting you know that some are missing. So because of that, this is not going to be a severe weather type of setup or a very heavy rain scenario, but you can still get some decent downpours out of this because there will be in lines, a couple of lines actually will pass through. And some of those lines may have a briefly moderate, if not a heavy rainfall rate that will take place in only about a 30-minute window or so, and then it'll drop back down again. So in that 30 minutes, that's where most of you are likely to get most of your rain out of this as far as rainfall amounts. So let's walk you through it. We'll go through it hour by hour. Here's Futurecast showing that rain will continue to build this afternoon. You can see how the radars light it up like a Christmas tree this afternoon. The first little specks and spotty showers will develop in advance of it. That will likely be around the Louisville area in central Kentucky as we get into about 5, 6 o'clock. And there is a band that will form. This is the moderate band that will form right along the front itself. And this is where you're going to get the majority of your rainfall amounts will be with that band. This particular model says 5:30. It will be around Evansville is where this would be lining up. Some of the high-res data says this is going to be in Louisville at that point. So there's still a bit of a speed difference of a few counties this afternoon. So that margin of error has to be considered. Once it develops, we'll obviously know, but it hasn't developed yet. So we have to account for the margin of error until then. But you get the idea. Passes on by. Most of the activity will be out here by midnight, other than spotty showers. Clouds will take a while to linger, but the freezing line does drop in the area, but should stay safely away from us, especially in the city, to prevent any issues. But it will be, no doubt, a colder morning tomorrow. Nearly 30 degrees colder than what we got now is what you'll be feeling at this time tomorrow. So the first little taste of what's coming down the road will be felt as early as tomorrow morning. Okay. At least we'll get some sun to come back tomorrow. May not arrive as fast as you want it to, especially in Kentucky, but Indiana, you should be first to get some sunshine, although high clouds quickly fill right back in. So if we're going to be traveling, I'm curious, let me know, because you guys are kind of driving the narrative. We have a lot of these national stories that air, like, travelers are hitting between 1 and 7 p.m. on Wednesday. It's the busiest travel time, as well as Sunday. But everyone's different. And the Ohio Valley, we have people that travel here, but a lot of us, just because of the way our area is, a lot of us grew up here and our families are here. So there's not a whole lot of traveling far away that we experience here compared to other cities in the country do. So it's really day of travel that we face around here more of, the actual holiday itself on Thursday. But let me know when you plan to travel, if at all, on the chat. And that'll give me some idea of where to focus over the next couple of days. All right. So I know some of you do have to travel, so I know this is an important setup. So here we go for Wednesday morning. If you're leaving Wednesday morning, the radar should be relatively quiet here. There's not much happening. It will just start to light up across Illinois into Indiana, but very, very light and above freezing. So minor stuff for Wednesday morning. So if you're traveling Tuesday and Wednesday morning, everything looks good. Wednesday afternoon. Here's a snapshot at 3:30 in the afternoon. Notice the rain is breaking out first into Indiana and Illinois. That is important to note. The way this system is diving into our area, the precipitation is going to form on the northern part first and then develop on the southern part. So if you are heading into Illinois, Indiana, or Ohio, you will likely run into something falling from the sky a lot quicker than we will here in Louisville and to wave country. So kind of keep that in mind. If you're traveling north, you're running into precipitation on Wednesday. If you're traveling south, you will actually be traveling into warmer weather and likely some sunshine. So if you're heading south or even east, you're fine. You're heading west or you're heading north, you'll run into the developing stages of the system. But what if you're staying put? Well, as we head into Wednesday afternoon, into the night, that's when everything will begin to break out. Now, this looks pretty. A lot of colors on here. This is where the challenges come into play with the different modeling because they're still not locked in on the track on how this will progress across either Kentucky or Tennessee, or even try to cut a little bit into Ohio, which is what the Euro wants to do. This is looking at our in-house model. And what it tries to do is it's all rate driven. So where that precipitation breaks out first, which again is in our northern sections, that is where your rates are a bit heavier, and therefore if there's any potential for that to flip over to a burst of some wet snow, especially, it will be found on that northern side, I-70. From Ohio all the way into Indiana, into Illinois. Here into Louisville, it looks like, especially Kentucky right now, and southern Indiana, it looks like just a cold rain. Not the prettiest of days, especially late as we get into Wednesday night into early Thursday. But darkness of night, got to be aware of that. That's usually your best opportunity to get any changeover to happen. But it will be, again, highly rate driven. A more weak system will struggle to have any snow with it at all. A heavier system will have a better potential for snowfall, but you got to keep in mind a heavier or stronger system like the Euro wants to do also means it will cut more north. So the snowfall could be heavier, but it would be much more displaced. So it's all about a balancing act. If you're a snow lover, you want that little more southern track, but you don't want it too weak because then it won't have the rate to produce a lot of snowfall. But if you want a bigger snow, you got to sacrifice the track north. This is the way it goes around here, guys. So this does not look to be a crippling snow, by the way. This looks like it would be just a few inches, mainly on grassy areas. There could be some coating on side roads, but this is not locked in. So I don't want to get into too many specifics here because there are still several pieces of data I've looked at, even this morning, that still indicate this area would still be mainly rain. So it's not by any means locked in. High res needs to see this. It's just too complex for what we call the more national or global models like the Euro and the GFS. They can't see some of these finer details that we just need to have. So not to mention the system hasn't developed. So once we get into the next 24 hours, we should have the system really start to lock in on all pieces of data. But on this Monday morning, we're not there yet. Just be aware of that. This is mainly a late Wednesday, early Thursday type of scenario, the way it's playing out. As we head into, in fact, 3 o'clock in the morning, Thanksgiving morning, this is where it gets a little more perhaps interesting for us to see if we can pull down that rain snow line to get us into at least a burst of snow at the very end before it shuts off on Thanksgiving Day, which right now I do not see a lot of problems with the Thanksgiving Day travel right now. I think it's really just going to be some wet snow showers. We'll be above freezing on Thanksgiving. We'll be in the 40s. So while it could snow, it's very similar to the last system as it is a kind of snow that we can handle because it doesn't cause problems. So that's the way it's looking right now. We're still in a mild pattern. The ground is still warm. We haven't had Arctic air that has frozen the ground and locked up the ground yet in an ice box. So because of that, these marginal systems like this, we do fairly well in, but they can be pretty. They can stick to trees and stuff if you get, if you're traveling into Illinois. Angela, I think you're going to Illinois, right? Illinois into Indiana and Ohio, you may see that kind of a scene where it sticks to cars and trees and is pretty. But it all depends on that track. So give us another 24 hours to lock that in. But as far as timing goes, the data is in a pretty good agreement, actually fairly strong agreement, that this is a late Wednesday, overnight, early Thursday scenario for anything to move through. That is when the most impacts from precipitation will be. So if you're traveling early on Wednesday and you can get to your destination in a 10-hour window, you'll be fine. If you're traveling on Thanksgiving morning, you'll be fine because it'll be improving throughout the day and not getting worse. Okay, but still a chilly setup, so I don't want to discount that it's going to be a warm period. It's going to be pretty nasty overall for the system to roll on by. But I think the biggest issue with snow, if you're traveling far from here, is going to be here, the big cities, only because it develops more into a nor'easter at this point. So they will have the rate, they will have the colder weather to deal with. So it'd be a much more of an impact on road travel and by air. So your bigger airports in the Northeast may likely feel some impacts here for Thanksgiving, and they may linger into Sunday. So if you have a connecting hub out of this area, or your plane's expected to come in from this area and then you connect here in Louisville, then go somewhere else, that is where you could run into some delays, especially on Thanksgiving, would be because of what happens in the Northeast. So keep an eye on that area if you're traveling at all for any airline. Cause and effect, a ripple effect down the line. Okay, so it moves on by. Here's the Euro. You can see the difference in the Euro. I mean, look at that. The rain snow line is north of us, and it has really, Indy would be on the very southern edge of any snowfall. It keeps it more into Detroit and Cleveland. So there's still just not a lot of agreement yet. And it really just depends on how strong that wave, that low pressure is as it moves on by. Okay, it passes into the area. Now we get into Clipper land. And this is where it gets a little more challenging because clippers are easy to track once we have an idea of their pathway as far as the angle of attack. In other words, as the low moves on by, the wind flow is going to be roughly like this for the weekend and even for early next week. It'll dive down and then curls to the east. And with that dive down, this is where we got to watch right in through here to see how many little waves pass in that flow. And right now, there are at least 2 that I can find. And the issue with that, as you're about to see, they don't always show snowfall. Some do, some don't. But the energy is there. So we got to watch it. I have seen many, many times, especially when you get Arctic air that moves in, that as long as you have that energy that is there, watch what happens in the days getting closer. You start to then see it develop into a clipper, and then moisture shows up. Then you end up with a snow band that develops. But that is all fairly last minute as you get to the event. And this is a week out nearly that we're talking about. So it's going to take some time for that to show through. But the energy is there on every model I've been able to find. It is there. So that's step one. And that's why I put it on the snowboard, because history has told us in this scenario that they do tend to develop in this kind of environment. So we'll worry about that as the week wears on. But at least for the Wednesday Thanksgiving one, I don't see any significant issues right now. Okay, so number 1 on the Clipper. Okay, so when does that arrive? Well, I'm just going to show you the Euro because I don't want to show you every model. But in general, this looks to be a Saturday issue that it'll move in. There it goes, zips on by. These are given the name clipper because they move fast. They clip on by, usually only spend the residency time in any one area is probably about 2-3 hours, and then they're out. But your air is getting colder as the weekend evolves, so your snow ratio goes up. And what that means is basically you can get more bang for your buck out of the amount of moisture you have in the air. So in a normal setup, if this was, say, 40-degree weather, and this was moving on by, it would be sprinkles. And that's it. Nothing to get too worked up about. But if you have Arctic air, this can suddenly turn into a quick dusting to half-inch of snow that can zip on by. Well, that's a whole different ballgame now for us around here, especially in our area. Minor snow events cause bigger problems. So we got to watch clippers around here. They usually get us the most excitement, to be honest with you, the winter season, our clippers. And we have at least two that are showing up. One will be Saturday. Ural likes it north. GFS, by the way, likes it much more south into Tennessee. Usually it's wherever the path is, you got to go roughly 75 to 125 miles northeast of where that big red L shows up all the time on the maps. And that is where your best snow path will be. So you want the L or the path, the energy to flow right through here to be a light snow setup for our area. If it passes through Illinois and right over Louisville, then it's going to be too far north. It'll be Indiana and Ohio. So the angle of attack of where it drops down is important because then we have to do the math and the displacement, and that's where we draw the snowband. Not to get all technical, but that's kind of behind the scenes of how we put together a clipper forecast in this scenario. So the first one that I see showing up is going to be Saturday. GFS, because the angle is a little different, it's a little faster. Euro's a little bit slow. You know, again, the timing is going to be varying, but Saturday's a fair time period for now. We'll get specific later. Then we get into Sunday night into Monday. And the Euro only shows one little blip right there. A little bit of green that shows up near Memphis, right? But the energy is there, and it's actually pretty decent as it dives on down. The problem is the model thinks, okay, there's not enough moisture to work with here, so it'll be dry. But models do horrible on moisture levels in Arctic air like this in advance. So it only takes just a little bit to squeeze out, and you can get a nice little snow band of light snow to form. So we're watching Monday because we're going to be cold, guys. I mean, teens, lower 20s, and light snow falling is a recipe for some problems on early Monday. That's next Monday that we would have to see if that happens. And this could fade away tomorrow. If the energy is not there, we're not going to get anything. So as long as that energy is there, I'm going to be watching it. If it fades away, I'll let you know, I promise. After that, we do have a bit of a moderation that tries to happen. I'm a little suspect on how much of that is going to be a moderation here because another blast, an even colder blast, is likely to dive down into the eastern United States. But we don't know how far down yet it'll dip, but that one would likely show up after a small little modest warm-up. We drop again. And that little modest warm-up, I would say about next Tuesday or Wednesday, somewhere in there, we will try to climb back up, and then we fall. So we'll see how that plays out with the clippers that move on by the area. In fact, when you look at the EPS or the Euro ensembles, you guys know I love showing this. Let me actually show it to you. You can see this is clipper number one. Hey, all right. I mean, the lines are filling in, right? The ensemble members are trying to fill in the gaps a little bit. So as this gets noisier for Sunday night or Saturday, excuse me. Oh, this is the Sunday one, right? Yeah, this is Sunday into Monday. Sorry, I get them all backwards. But it is noisy. So we'll see what happens if it can pick out something that'll pass on by. And then we get into early December. And again, it's all over the place. So I can't raise a lot of confidence flags there on how many waves we could get out of that. The models are different on timing. So that's why it just looks like a mess. Looks like you're playing Tetris over there. So that's the reason why we can't go too high confidence in the longer term. Okay, let me get into the 10-day and get to some of your questions. If you're wondering again how cold we're going to get, well, I think we're going to squeeze at least 1 day, maybe 2 days of sub-freezing weather for an entire day. That is likely to happen at the end of the weekend into early next week, Monday and Tuesdays, and that's when the clippers move by. So again, that's why we got to watch them. And then we'll see what happens as we try to warm up. Sometimes you can get some wintry weather with that, but just beyond the 10-day is another drop that shows up that will drop in the area. Now, keep in mind, if we were to get some light snow on the ground, say Saturday, we get a coating of snow on the ground. That is likely not going to go anywhere because we are so cold Saturday night into Sunday, and therefore the numbers you see on Sunday and on Monday, we will have to take those lower if we get snow on the ground. So if we get, say, a half inch of snow on Saturday, we will not be 34 on Sunday. We will not even get close to that. And certainly on Monday, we will not get out of the 20s. So we have to make adjustments if we know that we're going to get snow on the ground, but we are not confident yet snow will be on the ground. So that's why we're going with just a dry scenario potential on temperatures. And that's what that 10-day looks like. Those are the numbers associated with a dry cold blast. And that is cold enough. But if you add any type of snow at all, just a light coating, those numbers come down. Okay, so we got some time before we have to worry about this. It'll be an interesting week to see how this all progresses. Travis, you're up in northern Indiana. Low there could be around 9. Yeah, if you get snow on the ground, you get snow on the ground. Let's see. Any questions? Hey, Carrie, how you doing? Over the years, observed the range snow line usually 60 miles north of me in Orange County. Typically, yeah, range snow lines, yes, can be an average of about 50 to 80 miles, but in a clipper, it is a little more displaced on a clipper. It can go up to over 100 on a clipper sometimes. Let's see. Hey, Ken, how you doing? Watching from Columbus, a meteorologist, Dr. Trapasso. Oh, my goodness, Dr. Trapasso. I have not heard his name in so long. He was my professor, yes, at WKU. Dr. Trapasso is a legend. If anyone has ever taken his meteorology, some of you have had classes with him at Western, just even for electives. He's just a wild guy. I've been on several trips with him, even one to the Weather Channel one year. It was a lot of fun. Okay, let's see. Hi, Amy. I hope you are doing well. I haven't seen you in years, right? And Angela, I see you all the time, it seems like. I hope you're doing well. Okay, guys, I think everyone's okay. If there's any travel questions and specifics, I wouldn't get too worried about it right now on the snow side. I really think this is going to be much more of a wet snow type of scenario for us, pretty snow. I don't see a lot of travel issues right now for Illinois, Indiana, or Ohio, unless the rates increase, then that may be a different story. But as it stands right now, it looks to be a wet snow and just mainly wet roads. Just messy, though. I mean, I'm not going to downplay that it's going to be a pretty dry and easy one. It won't be. It will be slow traffic. And because it's snowing, everyone's going to probably go a lot slower than normal, worried that the roads are iced up. And that's fair. Okay. So what we're going to do this week, it's only Monday. We're going to take this one day at a time and see how this wave progresses for Wednesday night and Thursday. We'll be watching the Clippers that show up Saturday and Monday and see how that evolves. And then our next assignment is how cold are we going to get with this wave and for the second one that is just beyond the 10-day. That is your homework. I'll be grading it by the end of the week. All right. Take care, guys. We'll stick close together here and see how this plays out. Keep an eye on that rain again. They'll be moving in this afternoon. For the evening commute, it is going to be a bit messy on the road. So please be careful traveling even today. I'll see you guys on the flip side. Be on at 11 a.m. on midday.